This is the jpeg2RAW podcast. I'm Mike Howard. I'm broadcasting from the basement of Knob Studios here in sunny and hot Atlanta. jpeg2RAW is a photography podcast for the amateur photographer. You can find us on the web at www.knobstudios.com, and you can contact the show by emailing us at podcast@knobstudios.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Flickr, and Twitter by searching for jpeg2RAW, or just follow the links on our website. This is jpeg2RAW podcast, show number 8. And tonight I am joined by Tim Kemperle again, but tonight he's coming on in a new way. He's the co-host. So welcome, Tim, for your first night as co-host.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for accepting the co-host position. So this is your fourth time on?
Third time.
Okay. So is your weather getting a little bit better up there?
It was beautiful today, 80, 85 degrees. It's going to start cooling off, they said. That's it. Now It's going to be down to the mid-60s from now on forward.
So you're up in New York. I'm down here in the Atlanta area. And we were having a number of 90-plus days. And I think basically it was September 1st. Ever since September 1st, we haven't had any more 90-plus days. And now we've even had some highs in the low 80s. So that's nice. So I'm loving the cooler weather. The air conditioning's out in my truck, so this makes it really nice. And I'm looking forward to fall and the fall colors to get out there and take some shots.
Oh, I agree. I like the fall.
Yeah, fall. Fall is probably. I like winter too. I like the cold, but fall is definitely one of my favorites. I love the cool weather. And
see, that's not fair though. You like the winter. I mean, you're in Atlanta. You don't really get winter.
No, but you
don't get the cold like we get it.
The funny thing about we don't. The funny thing about last year was we had what we termed Snowmageddon, where we had, I think, 2 inches of snow, but it all turned to ice. And the city basically shut down, and you had to go and stock up on a month's worth of supplies for the 3 days of bad weather, before it all hit in and get ready. But I still liked it. I got a 4-wheel drive Toyota 4Runner, and it had no trouble getting around. So I like the cold weather. And Stefan out there in chats in Raleigh, North Carolina, they get colder than us and more more snow than us too.
We have it sometimes really bad, sometimes not so bad. I mean, last year we had 2 feet, but usually it'll disappear relatively quickly after that.
Yep. Well, tonight
Raleigh doesn't get any snow down there. I'm surprised. I thought you would.
Yeah, they probably get more than what we would, but I doubt they get what you guys would get.
No, that's for sure.
Yeah. And we rarely get much snow here, either. So tonight I've got a little bit of news, not a whole lot of news, but we also have a listener question, which we'll get to right after the news. So one of the best places I love to go to is DP Review. If you ever go out to DP Review, not only do they have great forums with a lot of information, but they also have great camera reviews.
I agree. That's where I find a lot of the information on like the new camera I'm planning on getting that Sony. So
that's Sony. Yeah, because you're a Sony shooter. Now, before you came out here, I polled the people out in chat.
Yeah, I saw a Nikon.
They're all Nikon. I'm Nikon too. But one of the things as you start building up your inventory of camera gear is a good tripod. And DP Review has it's hard to see here in chat, but they have a good, they have the 5 best tripods for under $450 out there, a write-up on that. So it's a good read to go out there at DP Review and read that article and see what, tripods are recommending at under $450. Now, I don't know if that is $450 with a ball head, because some of the better tripods don't come with a ball head and you have to buy that separately. I have a Gitzo carbon fiber tripod with a really right stuff ball head, it's a pretty heavy setup. It's not not good for light travel, but it's a good sturdy tripod for taking long shots. Tim? What do you have for a?
I have a I never know how to pronounce it. I think it's Slik, SLIK. I have a couple. I have one really sturdy one, but I remember when I was going to take it traveling once with me down to Disney, I realized there was no way in the world I was leaving the room with that and traveling throughout the day with it. So I wound up getting another travel one, which is a lot lighter. And it's also a slick. So I've been pleased with it. It's supported my camera, no problem. I do want to get a ball head, and I have definitely been looking into it. And I guess the one that I actually like are the ones with the pistol grip on there. When I was actually down in Disney, one of the photographers down there for a portrait studio session we did had one, and that was so nice to see how easily he was able to move it, set it up exactly where he wanted it in seconds, or less than a second, I should say, not even seconds.
Yeah, mine has the dial, and I think if I had to do it over again, I might get the pistol grip. I'd love to see somebody else using one. So, if you get it, let me know how you like it. Any particular brand that you're looking at?
Yeah, you know what? I can't spend 450 on a tripod. I know that, so that's definitely at the high end of mine, and probably the bullhead is just as expensive. That's the problem with it. They're not cheap things. You really have to be invested and have to need it. Right now, I haven't had a need for the tripod as much. I use a monopod for my son's soccer games. This past weekend, his first game, I forgot to take the monopod with me, and I was using my 100/400 lens, and I definitely missed it. I was like, on the long shots when I was fully out at 400, I could have used it.
Is that a image stable? Oh, you have that built into your camera, don't you?
Built into the camera, correct?
Okay, yeah, so that helps out because I know you've seen my 120 to 300 f2.8 lens before. There's no way I could handhold that for more than one or two shots. I mean, that thing's just too heavy. So I always bring the monopod for something like that.
Yeah, I will have it for the next game. He doesn't have a game this weekend, but after this week again, for the rest of the year, he's
So,
got 10 more games.
so this is one article I definitely want to read because one of the things about my tripod, it does not have a center column. When I was looking at tripods, I had heard that if you want the most stable tripod you can get, you do not want a center column, the most stable. But I think that, I don't know if it's going to make enough difference in what I do to not have the center column. And the center column seems like it is one of those things you can put it all the way down.
Right.
I don't think it's going to subtract that much, but you have the ability to bring it up if you need to.
I agree. That's my thought on it. I mean, I know the one I have, I can raise and lower, and I usually don't raise it unless I have to. I'd rather keep it low because it is more stable down at the bottom.
Yeah, so I think my next one, if I get another one, if you're like me, you got a long list of photo gear you'd like to have, and getting another tripod is so far down there, it probably won't happen. Another quick story is Samsung's now announcing a mirrorless interchangeable lens camera. We talked last week about your Sony that's introducing one,
Right.
and now Samsung's come out with one. There was also a rumor out there that Nikon and Canon were coming out with some, and I think Nikon even issued a press release saying, "Hey, wait, we never said we were doing that." So I think that Sony is shaking things up and getting everybody to move around and reconsider some of the things they're doing. Nikon coming out and saying we never said we're doing that makes you wonder. Okay, what are you really saying?
Really.
You're saying we never said that, but you didn't say we're not doing it. That's one thing if they would come out. We're definitely not working on a mirrorless camera. That would be pretty definite. But when they come out and say we never said we were.
Well, I think with the changeover to the SLRs having, well, in this case of the new Sony, they're calling it the SLT. It's gonna, if you want to have the focusing on the movie mode, you're gonna need to have something where it can't be a mirror, because once the mirror flaps up, you can't focus anymore autofocusing. So it may not be on their flagship models. I don't know if Sony's going to do it on their flagship model. They're going to come out with the revised A900 next year and see what they do with that. And
Yeah, Nikon has a nice range of low-end cameras, mid-range cameras, and the pro cameras. You could see them doing that on either the mid-range or the low end, for sure. Seeing, working some things out there before they bring it up to the high end. I think on the high end, one of the things that you would have is the increased shutter speed, the shutter frames per second, because that Sony is doing 12 frames
12.
per second at 24 megapixels. I mean, that is just crazy. So it's interesting. Cameras are only getting better.
Well, I'll tell you, just so you know, you may not be aware of it, but that sensor in your camera
Yeah.
is made by Sony.
Oh no, I knew that. No, Nikon buys
Okay.
their images from their sensors from Sony, and which makes you think. So is that 24 megapixel coming to Nikon? Although I'm not quite sure what the Nikon D3X is. It seems like it's close to that already.
Yeah, it might have been up there.
Yeah. So the next article, and I know you and I have talked some about this because we're both Lightroom users, and there's a plugin for Lightroom. It also works with Photoshop, so you can get this and work with Photoshop. I think you have to make the decision whether you want the Photoshop model, which will work with both Photoshop and Lightroom, or just the pure Lightroom model. And Lightroom, using the Lightroom version, is a little bit cheaper. So what the software is Nick software, and they have several different, I don't know what you call them, applications or whatever, but they have the Silver Effects Pro, which is the black and white one. They have the Color Effects Pro. They have a sharpening one, a noise one, a Vivisa,
And the HDR.
and the HDR. And the Color Effects Pro, they just come out with a new version of that. I have the Nik Software Complete set, which I think has the Color Effects Pro 3.0. So now 4.0 is coming out, and I haven't got to try it yet. But Nik Software is something that I really like. Now, the funny thing is the Color Effects Pro is I don't use it that often, so I'm not. If I get it as a free upgrade, I'll do it, but I'm not going to go out and buy it. The one I end up using the most is that Vivisa, if I'm saying it right. I may be saying it wrong, but that one's the one I end up using the most. For HDR, I actually like Photomatics better.
And that's what I actually use, Photomatics. And
Yeah,
I'm gonna probably get the Nik software, but I'm waiting for my wife to get her first paycheck so I can get the discount on it because she's a teacher. So
there you go. Yeah, teacher discounts great for Nik Software is great for Lightroom too. My wife's a teacher, and we got Lightroom for $79, I believe it was, which is just a great price. And didn't you say you either one that told me you got it for even cheaper than that?
uh, well, I saw where did I see Lightroom? I saw Lightroom for like 149 now, and I mean for $49, and
Wow.
it's amazing the price I saw. Makes me think they're coming out with the new version very soon. They got to be coming out with Lightroom 4.0 then.
Yeah, I have seen the prices all over the place because I have seen I think 129 for the full version. That's no you don't have to prove that you're in education or anything like that. It's just the full version, 129. At that price, I mean you got to get it. It's just really good. Now when I was looking at it, I downloaded the trial version and I almost deleted it because um, for the first 15 days or so, I hated it. It's so different. If you're used to using Photoshop or something else, it is so different. But somewhere along the way, it clicked for me, and then I ended up, just absolutely loving it. And now I spend the majority of my time in Lightroom.
That's where I am. I have Photoshop, and I used to do all my editing in Photoshop, along with using Adobe Bridge, which was right in there to do my organization.
Yeah,
And then finally, I said, you know what, Lightroom is really meant for the photographers. Let me try it.
yeah,
You know what? I have not looked back. Every once in a while, I'll go into Photoshop. What I really like about Lightroom is you're not damaging the original photo. You can always go back to the original photo. I mean, Photoshop, you either got to save it as something new, or you're writing right over the original.
right. You with Lightroom, it's all non-destructive edits.
Exactly.
Yeah, with Photoshop, especially if you're working with JPEGs, every time you save it, you're actually destroying the image a little bit. Um, and then if you're not saving it that way, you're going to need to save it as a PSD or something like that. So that's all the news I had. Now I did have. So let's go back to us. We did have a listener question. Our first listener question, and that was, what is the difference between auto mode in a camera and P mode in a camera? So you looked it up as well as I did, right?
Correct.
And what did you find?
Well, I came up with kind of what I thought, but I wasn't sure. The auto mode is what they called just the straight point and shoot mode. So it would be considered like the regular small point and shoot camera that you're getting, that anybody can pick up, press the button, and take a shot. In the program exposure mode, you're able to adjust the aperture or the shutter speed independent of the program. So it'll still get the picture you want, but you're able to adjust the exposure one way or the other a little different. It's almost the same. The green auto mode is pure dummy mode. That's where you see somebody, let's say you're out and about and you want somebody to take a picture of you and your family for yourself. Here, can you take a picture of this? Or a picture of us? You put it on the auto mode so that they just have to turn it, press the button, and take a picture.
Yeah, so auto mode is doing everything for you. ISO, aperture, shutter speed.
Yeah, absolutely everything.
Um, yeah, no, so okay, so going back to program mode, which I got a photo here now. It's not of your camera. This is, I think, a Nikon D40, and you can see the green auto mode. And I'm looking for that email on who sent us the question. Um, it was Paul Reeves from England. Paul
From
Reeves from
England,
England.
yes.
Yes, a listener from England was asking what's the difference between green auto mode and P mode. And so with the P mode, it's still going to do what aperture, shutter, and ISO, right?
Well, I think when you turn it over into from auto into P, it's going to still shoot exactly what the camera expects the mode to look like, almost what the auto would do. But then you can change it. Let's say you say, all right, I'm taking some sports pictures here. I want to change it so the camera may not realize that you want to up the shutter speed. So you can spin the dial to up the shutter speed and it'll change the aperture accordingly.
Yeah, and I think Paul's question was, is that a way for people to, get out of auto? So maybe if you're used to shooting full auto all the time and a little scared of going to aperture or shutter, or like you, Tim, going to full manual, is P mode a good, way to ease into some of those other ones?
It's a starting point. I agree.
And I think it is. I think, as we talked in the exposure podcast, you've got to learn how all those things interact, ISO, aperture, shutter speed, how they all interact, and how, it makes the exposure. And moving to P mode allows the camera still do a lot of the work for you, but for you to start making some adjustments on your own and realizing, what it's doing. Because, looking at that screenshot that we have there, you've got the green auto, the P, they got a whole dial there. It's got all the other choices. But sort of over to the left of that, you've got this plus minus button that has a minus with in a white triangle and a plus in a dark
Right, for
triangle.
exposure compensation.
And that's where the camera has said this is what I want for an exposure, but you can hit that and increase exposure or decrease exposure a little bit and have like a little override on the camera. But I think if you're going to do that, it's very important to make sure you did that and watch out. Because if you do that and then forget about it, you may be under or overexposing all your images for the rest of the day.
Oh, absolutely. And then you wind up looking at it later. And I know I've done it with ISO settings where I might have upped the ISO to 1600, and then I've taken pictures outdoors at 1600, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do?
So, I have joined several different photo clubs on internet and all that over the time, and there's a good source, and you and I can use them for some of the things to bring up here. So as long as we're on this, there was one thing, and I believe this lady is a pro. She's out there taking photos and doing different things. So she was out shooting, and she came back from a shoot, and all of her images were way underexposed. And she was asking for help. What can I do when I try and boost the brightness on it? I'm getting crazy amount of noise.
Right.
And my comment basically was, if you are more than a stop underexposed, you're basically it's just lost. You're going to have to go reshoot.
Especially if you did it in JPEG. If you did it in RAW, you might be able to recover a little bit more, but
Yeah, and in this case, these are not. I went out and took photos of the family. I was getting paid to take these photos.
ooh,
So you got to be careful about how much noise you got in there. You can do some noise reduction, but as soon as you start doing noise reduction, you also are introducing you're going to start deteriorating the image. So I think if you're more than a stop underexposed, it's going to be tough. You might
yeah, I agree.
I think RAW gives you that more latitude, like you said, than JPEG does. But even it can't save everything.
Yeah.
And I think the story there is you take that first shot, you look at the back of the camera, and what is the histogram telling you?
I live and die by the histogram. I
Yeah.
really do.
And that little image that's on the back is not always the photo itself, not the histogram,
Right.
is not always the best judge because that is a JPEG representation of what you took. And it's on that little bitty screen. Even if you have a nice big screen, it's still small. So that histogram is what's really telling you what's going on.
One of the other benefits of the those translucent cameras, and didn't bring this up last week, it will show the actual picture of what it's going to look like. It'll have the histogram up on the screen before you take the picture, so you can adjust the exposure before you even take a shot now.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, so that was a nice idea.
And something I wanted to ask you, and I don't think I asked this back when we did the exposure show. I can't believe I forgot about this. So you're a man. You shoot in full manual.
Correct.
So you're having to set your you probably leave ISO as low as it's going to go or whatever you're going to leave it on. So you're having to adjust shutter speed and aperture.
Correct.
How are you using the Sunny 16 rule, or are you just taking a
No,
shot,
I
looking at the
don't
back?
think I'm not using any of those rules. I remember all those rules, and matter of fact, before you said, I probably almost forgot all about it. I really go off. What shooting manual really did to me is forced me to look in the viewfinder to make sure the exposure is going to be correct. What is the exposure the camera is telling me? Is it going to be in the right place? I'll usually take the test shot, especially if it's something important. When I'm taking sports pictures like the soccer this weekend, I switched over a lot of times into aperture because the conditions are changing too much to keep it that way. But I will look, what is the exposure? Is it appropriate? And then adjust it from there.
Okay. So, and just so we can talk about the Sunny 16 rule, because I don't think we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
I think that what that is saying is if you're at ISO 100, it's a bright sunny day and you're outside, and you're at f16, then your shutter speed should be 100. Right? Is that what you understand, Tim?
I think that's it.
Yeah. So, if you can do that math in your head pretty good, then you can say, all right, if it's slightly shady, I need to go to F11. If I'm at F11, then I need to do this. I'm just not good enough to do that.
No,
So,
I mean, I remember that when I was doing film photography, and back then I never went manual when I was doing film photography because you didn't know what you were getting.
yeah.
And that was probably all either either shutter or aperture priority. And now, you know what? Digital doesn't come out good. The histogram is off. You delete it.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Okay. So you're just using the histogram to judge.
I live and die by it.
So have you gotten to where you basically can look at the light and say, I think it's about this, and you're getting fairly close?
No, I can't even say I do that. I really rely on the meter and the camera.
Okay.
I rely heavily on the meter.
Okay, because I'm nowhere near being able to look at the light and say I think it's this. It's something I probably should think about more is try and guess and just see what how close I can get. But aperture priority for me is so easy. Just I want f2.8 or 5.6 or whatever I'm shooting at, and then just take that shot and not worry about it. And I do look. The thing is, even if you're in those modes, you still need to look at your image and see did it underexpose or overexpose, because it's not always going to get it right. And then use that exposure compensation to adjust it.
Well, also, if you're setting the aperture, and let's say I was at the soccer game and I had f16, it may not stop the motion. So yeah, you might get the right exposure, but you might not see legs because they're running.
Yeah, I definitely would not shoot soccer at f16.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's just the rule. What you would do if it was a bright sunny day and you went down to, let's say, f4 or f5.6 or whatever, you would then increase the shutter speed proportionally.
Exactly.
To match that. Yeah. So tonight, Tim, you wanted to discuss, and I agree, it's a great topic. Is how we store our images, the whole process. How'd you put it? I'm looking for your thing there. You think storage would be a good discussion for the podcast?
Absolutely. What are people doing, or do people need ideas? I think we all can go back to the days of when we used to take pictures with film, and I still have shoe boxes of pictures. I had tried to store them correctly for a while. Then I still have shoe boxes of pictures, and if I wanted to find something, I'd probably have to go through multiple shoe boxes to try and find the picture I wanted. So, how do you store it? Where do you store it? Is there an organization to what you do with it? And now I think digital media has taken it to the next step where are you keeping it just on one hard drive where if your computer crashes, are you losing it? Are you storing it on DVDs, which I think now most people can safely say DVDs don't last as much as we thought they would, except for the store-bought DVDs that are pressed together. The ones that we write probably have 5 year to 10 year lifespan.
Yeah. And one of the groups I'm in, that's come up recently too. That I brought up the question: how are you backing up your or storing your photos? Because a lot of this in this one group I'm in, a lot of the people there are professional photographers. Of all different levels. Some of them are, just getting into this. Some of them are more established. There's all different levels. And it's interesting. Some of them have very good, have thought it out, and have got a system for themselves. Others have no system whatsoever. One of them was even talking about how she just shot a wedding and almost lost the entire wedding shoot from the files being lost during the process. And it's, we don't all have wedding photos like that, where you're shooting somebody's wedding. I think if you're shooting somebody's wedding, dadgummit, you need to be taking some precautions, because you can't go back and say, you know what, I lost all those photos. Can we redo that?
Yeah, no, that don't happen.
Yeah, if you miss if you get home and all your son's soccer shots from that day are deleted, you got next week. You can do it again.
Yeah,
You're a
I
little,
mean, it would stink, but you know what? Life
right,
goes on.
because more than likely that ones that got deleted had a really good one in it. That's how it always works.
Well,
But
what happened with me, and here's two short stories.
yeah,
The reason I got into backing up my photos about, I guess it was 4 or 5 years ago, I had my computer at home, the hard drive failed on me. And I was like, and I thought it was my main hard drive. And I had two hard drives, and one was for the data storage, and one was for the operating system. And I thought it was dying, so I brought it to my brother-in-law, who's a tech, and he looked at it, and he said, "It's not your main drive; it's your data drive." So now I was terrified. That's where I had all my pictures on. I didn't have any backup of my pictures, and I probably had about and it was probably at the beginning years of digital photography. I didn't have an SLR at that point. Most of the pictures that were on there were either scanned pictures or from a video camera that I had that took digital pictures as well. But there were some good pictures on there from my son when he was a baby. So now I was really upset that I was losing these pictures. So he took the hard drive and he actually put it into the freezer. He kept it in there overnight. It shrunk the metal. He pulled the hard drive out, got all the data off the hard drive, and then the hard drive crashed. All I lost was the file names, which I thought was amazing. I was like, you know what? I can make up the file names after this. But to replace the pictures was difficult. So I had to come up with a system, and that's when I went into the home server and said, you know what? I need to back up my pictures somewhere else. And then just this past summer, I was away at a dance competition, and they had a professional photographer there taking pictures, and I bought the DVD from him. And I remember talking to him during the event and heard him talking to somebody about one of his compact flash cards, which he said he was having problems with. And so now it'll work when I get back to my office. He lost those pictures, and it was the full day of the major competition. He lost
wow.
all the pictures.
Wow. And this is not something we were going to talk about, but one of the things with compact flash cards, and that's what I use too. I have a 16 gig compact flash card, and a lot of people use. Yeah, you got it too, huh?
Exactly.
Alexa, yeah. Some people don't use those anymore. Some people use smart
SD cards.
SD cards, whatever. But one of the things, maybe this doesn't apply now, but I know they talked about it back back in the day when we first started getting into this, was to always format the card in camera, to never format the card
Yes.
in the computer. And even more than that is formatted in the camera that you're going to be shooting in. So like in my case where I have a D2H and a D2X, and they're of the basic same family, so they're very, very comparable. The saying was, yeah, but format it in that D2H, and if you want to use it in your D2X, format it in the D2X. And that, I've always followed that policy, and I haven't had any problems with cards. I think that cards today are probably more dependable than they were, years ago. But still, I think
I've never had a problem with the card.
yeah, I think it's still more, it's still safer to format it in the camera.
Well, as Steven points out, he's got an SD card, and I know the new Sony went over to SD cards, which I wasn't pleased with because I just bought this 16 gig card at the beginning of the summer, and I think compact flash is on its way out.
Yeah, probably so, because compared to those SD cards, compact flash is fairly big, and the SD cards they're pretty large storage wise. They can hold quite a bit now. So
well, I think they're just not fast enough. That's the problem with them. So that's why I think the buffer on like the Sony is not going to clear out as quickly as if it had a compact flash card in there. But I think they're changing the technology on that. I think they have the is it the XD SD card or something? The technology changes. So
yeah, and I guess he out in chat are saying that the compact flash cards are mainly now on the entry level cameras. My cameras back when I bought them, they're now quite a bit old, but my D2H, D2X were top of the line back then, and that was what they used. They used compact flash, but I don't know what the top of the line Nikons are using now. Maybe they've all moved over to SD.
They still have compact flash.
Okay, but
actually, I think they have dual slot. They may have dual slots.
I know that the D3 came out with dual slots, but I thought it was actually dual compact flash. I'm not sure.
It might be.
We have to look that up. But another thing as we start talking about this is one of the practices I do is when I go to download my images off my compact flash card, I like to make sure that they're downloaded and done before I delete them. So I don't move them off the card, I copy them off the card. So I think if you're using Lightroom, it just imports them. It doesn't delete them anyway.
Right. It doesn't. Well, I think you could set it to delete them, but I don't. I want to make sure I've looked at the pictures and edited them before it deletes them.
Okay. Yeah, I like to do that too. To make sure that they are off the card, safely on the camera, safely on the computer, and moving on. So I guess we're ready to move into how we use Lightroom, because we're both Lightroom users. So a lot of what we're going to talk about here is our process with Lightroom, right?
Correct.
And what we go through. So, I was telling you earlier that I have tried to get the full Lightroom screen up here, and it's just doing a full capture of Lightroom and transmitting it. Just it's not working well. So we may have to make do with partial screens. But once you walk us through a little bit of what you do from a downloading standpoint, how you go, the process of bringing in your photos off your card and what you do.
All right. The first thing, and I'll have my Lightroom up on my screen so it's easier for me to see what I'm doing. But the first thing I'll do when I import is I put my compact flash card in, and it'll bring up the import menu for me right away as to what I'm going to be looking at. I'll take those pictures, and on the right-hand side, first at the top of it, it has either copy as DNG, which is Adobe's digital negative, copy the file, move the file, or add the file. Since I shoot everything in RAW, I feel in my case, I'm more comfortable using copy as DNG as a digital negative, because instead of keeping two separate files, which I think Adobe would do otherwise in Lightroom, where it keeps a sidecar file of the raw data and then another file with the actual picture, the DNG combines the two of them together. So that's the first thing I do automatically on all my pictures.
So let me stop you right there. And I know we've talked about DNG before, so I don't want to have a big discussion about that. But that's a point to remember, is that it's still a RAW file.
Correct.
Is just now, instead of having a Canon, Nikon, Sony, Olympus, and on RAW file, you've got a open source DNG RAW file that doesn't have the sidecar file, which all the others are going to have. It has everything in the file, but it's still RAW.
Correct.
Okay.
Which has everything I need. And in my case, I'm comfortable with it. And I think the point that Adobe tried to make with people, and there are some camera manufacturers, I'm not sure who they are, that actually shoot in the DNG format. but I don't know who they are. I know Sony doesn't do it. Matter of fact, most camera manufacturers have different RAW formats for each of their cameras,
They
which makes it
do.
real difficult.
They do. If you know, I a lady I was talking to on one of the forums has a Nikon. It may be a D3000. Maybe like Gary was saying, D3000. And her version of Photoshop, she wasn't able to bring in the raw files. So she had, because they, each camera has its own raw formats, slight changes, even within the Nikon or Sony or Canon brands. So she had to go and do a download, an update to Adobe Camera Raw in order to get that to come through. Um, for me, I haven't got brave enough yet. I'm still keeping everything in Nikon RAW.
Well,
But
I convert it, and everything so far it's worked well for me. So then the second area I go to over is on the right hand side. It has the file handling and the file renaming, and I always check off to render it as a minimal preview so it doesn't take up too much room on my computer on the preview from Lightroom, as well as it'll bring up the screen a lot quicker on the imports. It also asks if there's duplicates, do not copy them, which I don't want to copy any duplicates. And what it does is it knows if the picture's been previously imported on the compact flash card, and it will gray out that picture so you're not importing those pictures. Then the second section is file renaming. And this is probably one of the more important things that you need to do with your pictures. And the way I number all my pictures is the first part is the date, which is, let's say today is 2011, the month 09, the day 14. So all my pictures start off with that 8-digit number going across so that if I ever want to sequentially look for my pictures by a date, I could find it that way. And then I have a custom title as to where it is. And let's say it's my son's soccer game, it would have Bethpage Soccer. So it would be the date, soccer, and then the last part of it is the extension of the file number with a 3-digit number. So it would be 001 up through 999, which I don't plan on taking 1,000 pictures in one day.
right.
At least I haven't gotten to that point yet.
So let me stop you for a second there, and I have Lightroom up on the screen right now, and I'm going to import a few photos. If we can do this live, we'll see if we can, if this broadcast server can handle running Lightroom at the same time as trying to broadcast. Hopefully this won't mess anything up, but I'm going to try and import, if I can find where I put them. And right now, I know nobody can see this. This is too, too small, but just hold on. I'll find images here in a second. All right. I am not finding them easily. Why would include subfolders? There we go. What on earth is this finding? I put them in a special folder to find them, and then now all it's wanting to do is go to specific files. What is from C? Their source. All right, we'll do it this way. So this is a trial version of Lightroom I've installed, and apparently I don't have everything set up correctly on it. And that's what's causing some issues right now. All right, here we go. C drive, and this, once I get this going, we'll be able to see some of the stuff you were talking about, Tim. And so
problem.
it may help for people to be able to see.
For people looking at it.
Yeah.
Anybody out in chat use Lightroom, or what program do you currently use? Because I had previously used Photoshop Elements as well, and I wasn't pleased with that at all.
Yeah. Okay, so I found the images, and it's not a whole ton of them. This is just from a shot that I did, and I'm, as you can see, what Lightroom is doing is finding all the photos. I'll come up here in a second. It's finding all the photos, and the ones that, like Tim, like you mentioned, the ones that I haven't imported yet, and since I haven't imported any, the ones that will come up are check marked.
Correct.
Yeah. And what is going on in the video here? It's not showing it.
It may not be able to process it because
yeah,
because you see it on your server, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So now it's starting to bring them in. Um, well, you know what? I don't think we wanted to do that. We're going to stop that.
It started importing them.
Yeah. We're going to stop the import and we're going to do it again because what we wanted to show was your keywording and your naming convention. So let's go back to import. Yeah, I think we may have. Once you keep talking while I work on this, because it's having a
All
little
right.
bit of
Well,
difficulty with everything it's trying to do. So you go ahead and talk, and I will work on it.
like I was saying, the important part is trying to find. I always think of trying to find pictures later on when I want to find them. So usually I can figure it out based on the date and maybe even the month of when I took it. So I'll have the name of the picture. That's the year, month, date, the name of where I was or what the event was, and then the sequence number of the pictures. The second section after that is applying during import, and this is where I apply the metadata to my pictures. And to me, this is just as important because I like to know what I had for or where I took the pictures. Some locations, I apply my name to it. This way, when I have the picture later on, all my data is associated to that picture. So I'll usually put the name of the title of where I was, and my son's team is Bethpage Blue Bolt Soccer, so I'll put that as the title of it. I'll put my name as a creator, my address, my emails attached to it. I have a Flickr site where I usually will put pictures up, so I'll have my website associated to that. And then the second area that comes up is the location of the picture. And right now, I don't usually geotag my pictures. It's something I've done in the past. I do like doing, but don't always get around to doing. So what I'll attach to the picture is where was the picture taken. In this case, the sublocation was Barella Field, so that would get added. Plainview is the city. New York is the state. So if I ever come back to the picture, I think we can all relate to looking at a picture and not knowing either where it was taken or who was in the picture. So I try to put key tags to all my my pictures. And in the last section of this is the keywording. And all the pictures for the soccer are going to have certain names for it. So in this case, it'll be Bethpage. It'll be PAL for the Police Athletic League. Soccer, the name of the soccer team. Sports will be in there. Team, grass, Nassau County. Anything that's specific to all the pictures, I'll enter into this section. And then after that, I will import it into a specific folder. And what I'm doing with my folders currently is I have a folder for 2011 on my main computer. All my other prior years are on my home server. But since I access these quicker, I want to have a quick access to it. I have 2 SSD drives in my main computer. Under the 2011, I put another subfolder, which would be the date of, or actually in this case, for the soccer, I'll put 2011 fall soccer. And then another subfolder in there, the date of the soccer game, so that I can always say, all right, I wanted to find pictures of soccer. It's from the fall. When is it? I can easily go into a folder and find any of the pictures from that. I'll import all my pictures into Lightroom at that point before I delete any, except there will be some pictures that I delete before I bring them in because maybe they're out of focus or they're blurry. Once I bring the pictures in, then I keyword all of them based on the player names and the number of the person or anything else associated to it, so that a year down the road or the end of the year, if one of the parents say, do you have any pictures of my son Andrew, I can easily say, yeah, these are all the pictures I have of your son, and it's easy to find the picture.
Wow. So the keywording tagging is just awesome and something that I wish I could do better and done better. But it is difficult when you take a lot of photos to do that.
Oh, I think you told me one time how many pictures you take. I thought I had taken a lot at like 25, 30,000 pictures over the past couple of years. I think you take like that in a year.
Yeah. Yes, the highlight of what I was taking about 25,000 to 30,000 a year. I'm not taking nearly that much anymore. And here the thing we're going to broadcast a live import of this thing. The thing that Lightroom is doing when you go to do an import is it's kind of screen blanking most of the screen.
Right.
It's like taking different control of the screen. So actually, the screen capture is not working whenever you go to do the import. So I'm not going to be able to show that. And now I'm looking at what I got up here on the video, and I tried to do a quick capture on my computer, and it's just not working too well. So I'll put in the show notes some better screen capture so you can see some of this stuff. But like you had mentioned, you know, when you import in these things, let me bring up my import. When you import in these things, you are giving it a shoot name, which helps you. You're telling it where to go, and
Right.
you're storing yours by like 2000. The way I do it is I have like 2011, and then underneath that I have them by day. Was that how you said you
Yeah,
were doing them?
that's what I have in there. I mean, I'll have in the file name it's 2011-09-14. This way it's like that, and then I'll have a subfolder which would have the same date on it as well.
Okay. And now, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And well, and the reason I think this used to come up more was uh, when I used to send my pictures out to get printed, they would put the file name on the back of it, and when somebody wanted it, said, "Oh, you know what? I like these pictures. Can I get a copy of it?" Then it was real easy for me to find the picture, because that was even more painful when somebody would say, "Oh, can I get a copy of it?" and you couldn't find the copy on your computer.
Right.
So I always put the date on there, so it was easy for me to find it.
Yeah, yeah. Putting the date, keyword tagging these things is really good. Now, so like one of the things I've heard people say is I go out and I shoot multiple things on my card. So keyword tagging it with, one keyword or even multiple keywords for the whole import just won't work for me. Let's say you go out and you shot soccer, but after your soccer game, you decided, oh, look at that, there's some nice landscape. I'm going to go shoot that landscape too. So on this one card, you got multiple things that really, for a lot of the keywords you're wanting to do, are just not going to work. What
Well,
would you,
I'm
what
well,
would
the
you do in that
process I do
case?
for that, and I guess I can go off my last vacation trip to Disney, and I was down there for obviously multiple days, and each day you're down there, you're taking pictures of either different parks, different locations, or what have you. And with Lightroom, you had up there before it would put the check mark next to the picture.
Hmm.
What I would do is, let's say I took pictures, the first 50 pictures of the Magic Kingdom, the next 30 pictures in Epcot, and the next 40 pictures in Animal Kingdom. I would only import those first 50 pictures, and I would put those mask keywords on just those pictures for the Magic Kingdom. And then I would import again separately from the same card, because it would gray out all those pictures that I had previously imported. I would import the next ones from Epcot. So it's kind of back and forth. Is it a perfect way of doing it? I don't know if it's perfect. It's what works for me, at least.
Okay, so you just would import that card however many times it took to keyword them correctly.
Correct. I mean, obviously, the minor uh, keywording of, let's say, putting pictures where it says Jack or my wife Trish or Mickey Mouse was in this picture, those you got to individually keyword then, and that's where you go into Lightroom and do them individually.
And what level of keywording you're doing? So, like for instance, if you're shooting soccer and you've got the other kids on the soccer team, and your son's in a picture, but maybe two other kids are in it, just not prominently. I mean, are you only keywording if the kid is prominently in the picture, or to what level are you keywording?
I wouldn't say it's just prominent, but they definitely got to be recognizable. Or if it's just a back shot of the person, I won't put them in. But if they're kicking the ball at that point, then they're the person in there, even if you can't see the face.
Yeah.
So I would do them that way.
I think the magic to keyword, I don't know if magic's the right word, but the trick to
The key
keyword,
to keywording.
the key to keywording is to do it on the front end, like you're doing
Right,
it
yeah.
here, and that will help you so much down the road to be able to find these photos. But one of the things that I always think about is, okay, I'm importing these soccer photos, and I've gone back and said, wow, you know what I'd love to have? I'd love to have all, you know, headbutts, or what do you call it? The when they hit the ball with their head, or
Oh yeah.
I love to have all where they're kicking the ball, or all where their goalie is touching it. So if you think about if you look at soccer and or softball or baseball or basketball or whatever the sport is or other activities, you can really get into keywording down to some pretty low levels. Like if you wanted to find out all of a certain type of thing, and bat on ball on for baseball, or
Oh yeah, you could get way into it where that's all you're
yeah,
doing. Yeah, I haven't gotten it down that low, but you know what? Some of those ideas of kick or heading the ball
yeah.
or this, I mean, I definitely put like goalie in. I would put batting or something for baseball, but I guess some of those other smaller areas wouldn't be so bad to put in because sooner or later it's nice to have it.
Yeah, especially once you start building up a large database. I've got 250,000 or so images in my database, and that's a lot.
That's yeah.
And if I had been more religious with my keywording, I'd have been able to find those things a lot better. Now I just kind of hunt and peck. I do have keywords, but just not to that level. I do, one of the things I've been a little bit better about recently is keywording the location, like the city, the state, um, where they're at, whether they're at a park or something like that. I don't have GPS in my camera, but one of the things I have done is taken my cell phone with me, taken a shot with the cell phone to get the GPS data, and then in Lightroom later, there's a method you can go through to take that GPS data and put it into the photos.
Well, there's an app in my and I'm sure they have it for the iPhone also. I can't think of it. It's called. It's not TripIt, but that's another program that will record your where you're going, geotag it, and then you can sync up the time between the two. So you don't have to do it for the one time. You can actually, on My Tracks, that's what it's called, so that it'll have where you walked throughout the day, and then you could sync up to the pictures based on the time of the picture where you were. So you can get the GPS tagging. The Sony camera that I want to get, the A77, would have GPS built into it.
Okay. Now, going back to the import, when you have the checkbox where you say don't import duplicates so you don't bring them in again, there's one checkbox underneath that I don't think I heard you mention.
Make a second copy.
Make a second copy. And that is one that I do. I have a server. You might have heard me mention my Unraid server.
Right.
And that's really not for this show. Unraid is getting into that level of detail. Is not really for this show. But that server is where I house a lot of my backups of photos and everything. And at the time of import, it is not only it's copying it to my computer, but it's also copying it to my Unraid server. And that could just be an external hard drive for you or something like that. What that means is at import, you're copying it to two places. And the important thing is to back up those photos, whether it's initially like I'm doing, or at a later stage where if you have a home server or something like that where it backs up at night, or if you're using another program like CrashPlan to back it up offsite, you want to do that. You should be doing an offsite backup in addition to whatever you're doing at home. But I do that right then, and that lady who had the wedding photos that she was working on that she lost. I think she was able to recover them, but she almost lost. What she does have a backup thing in place, but it only backs. It's either every night or every week or something. She has to remember to do it, something like that. I can't remember what it was. So she had what she thought was a safe system, but what had happened was she downloaded them from a card. She actually had formatted the card for whatever reason. I don't know, or she moved them off the card. Whatever she did was not the proper way to do them. And while she was editing the photos and before the backup happened, her hard drive crashed. And I mean, it's a bad crash where the freezer, you mentioned putting it in the freezer.
Right.
That method didn't work. There's also something called the 6-inch drop where you drop the hard drive from 6 inches.
Yeah.
That method didn't work, or she didn't know about it, whatever the case. And I think she was able to get her photos somehow, though. I don't know how she finally got them, but she was able to cover most of them. But that, making that second copy at the time of import is something I do to protect myself from that, because hard drives will fail. It's just a matter of time.
Right. It's not if, it's when.
Yeah, I do the same as you with the shoot name. I give mine a shoot name, basically. Whatever it is, soccer game or whatever. I think I have the date put in there like you're doing also. Mm-hmm. And Lightroom allows you to set up templates for those imports where you can add sequence numbers, add date names. It's really flexible in all the stuff you can add in.
Very flexible.
If you want to have it come across just as your camera named it, you can do that too. And then the destination of where you want to put it. So, okay, so now we've got all these images in Lightroom and wherever else we're going to do them. We got them with the initial keywording and everything. What do you do after that?
Well, then my next area that I'll go through, and this is probably the more difficult task of managing your collection. It's going through each picture. The first run I'll go through is, first of all, looking to see is there any pictures that I can delete, because either they're poorly composed, out of focus, or just blurry, or just a bad picture. And there's a lot of pictures you can get rid of because you'll have a lot of duplicates. Then I'll re-go through them again, and that's where I'll start keywording all the pictures based on who's in the picture or anything else that I need to adjust based on the keywording. And my third run through will be where I'm looking at it, all right, and I'll star the pictures from 0 to 5. As to the value of the picture. Is it a 5-star picture all the way down to, and I probably don't go to below a 3. If it's a 1 or a 2, in my mind, it doesn't need to be anything. So I'm just keywording 3, 4s, and 5s. And then if I'm going to print something, then I'll use the color tags. I'll use a blue color tag for if I'm going to print it, or if I'm going to upload it to Flickr, I'll put a different color on it so that I can import it directly from Lightroom up to my Flickr site.
Okay. And yeah, Lightroom has those plugins where you can upload the Flickr, SmugMug, Facebook,
Correct.
and I'm sure some other things. I'm looking at mine now. I think that's the only ones I have, but I think there's others. So I do something very similar. So I've got a shot here. This is the stuff I just imported. I got a shot here, and one of the things, because I'm shooting this softball game, it was in horrible light. It's it started off with decent light, but it ends with horrible light because of the sodium
Right.
field lights. So what I do is I bring a gray card with me, and I have somebody shoot, take a shot with the gray card. And it's become a thing where everybody is, oh, can I do the gray card? Can I do the gray card? And they like to make a silly face, as you can see with this girl making a silly face. So what I generally do is I go through them, and it's going to be a little difficult to see here, but if you look at the bottom of the photo, you've got the stars that you mentioned, the little
Correct.
stars down there, and then you can barely see it, but you got some flags. So if I hit the P,
Right. The pick and reject.
if I hit the P key, well, I gotta have that highlighted. Okay. If I hit the P key, that flag turns to white, and then I can move to the next image. And that wouldn't have been one I picked. I'm just doing this for example. I can move to the next image and pick or reject that one. And then when I'm done going through and I'm picking all mine, I then do the filter. You can filter to only show you the ones that you've picked. So I'll just pick a few here. So we have a few, and then you come and you do the filter, and then I'm only going to be faced with the ones that I've picked.
Right. The 5 pictures that you picked.
Yeah. So let's make those thumbnails a little bit bigger. Oh, not that big. So I've picked a few of them with that, and I can go through my images, and you probably can with your method too. Go through, if I shot 300 shots in this soccer game, this softball game, I can go through that fairly quickly and make my initial picks by doing the flag on those and getting those down. Now, the other thing that you can do, you did all this keywording on the front end, but there's this little spray can. Have you ever used that?
Now, my brother-in-law uses it, and I have yet to use it.
The little spray can, when you click on it, I think you got to right click on it. No. When you click on it and get the spray can, if to the right of the spray can, there's a choice. You can say keywords, you can say labels. In this case, you say keywords, and then you type in whatever keyword you want. So let's say, this guy's name is Craig. It helps if I have the right thing highlighted. You go in there and you say Craig or whatever. I hit the D key, and now it's developing. Let's go back to not developing. And using Lightroom on this broadcast server is probably not the best of choices here, because now I've got all kind of things messed up. But You come over here to click that, you hit the keyword, and we're going to say Craig. I don't have to spell it right. And then I can just take my spray can and just spray it all across there. If you watch the mouse really quick, I just sprayed it across all those images, and now they're all, they all have that on there. They all have the word Craig, the keyword Craig on there, just because I just moused it over that. And that's you can only have, I think, one keyword at a time, but it makes it pretty easy to just take that spray can and click on them, and go over them and tag each one of them with the keyword Craig or whatever you want to tag it with.
Right. I mean, I think that's probably easier than what I do when you have a lot of pictures where you have, let's say, Craig's in the first four. He doesn't come up for a couple of pictures, then he's on a couple more. So you can actually go over it in the grid view here and say, okay, here's all of him. Skip over a couple and do him. That actually probably I'm gonna have to try that, because what I use is I use the keywording box in the library module, and I'll go through it, and it's got the recently used keywords, and I'll come up to it, I'll click on it where Jack is, or my mother-in-law, or whoever is in it, and go back and forth. But that, my brother-in-law said he likes it, so I got to try it.
Yeah, there's other things that little spray can do, but I've used it mainly for keywording, and I generally would not have the icons quite this big as I'm showing here. I'm making it a little bigger
Right.
so you can
So you can
see it.
see it.
Yeah, but generally I would have a little small enough to where I can still tell what the person or the thing I want
Who's
to
in it?
keyword. But this is so you do your shoot keywording on the front end. So your major keywording, like if you shot all those soccer shots, you on import you could not keyword all the different players that you were going to do,
No,
right?
you
You
couldn't.
have to go back and do it later.
No, I
Uh,
got the field name, the town name, the word soccer,
yeah,
sports, all the things that are general to every picture.
right.
After that, you have to go individually.
Yeah, and using this, this method with the spray can does help out, make it a little bit quicker. It's something that I like to use and do that. Now, so now you've got the images you've gone through, and we're not going to go over adjustments here because we're running out of time. But I would typically do some adjustments. I got that shot with her, the gray card. I would typically do a white balance off of that. White balance correct. You can sync your corrections that you make on one image. You can sync them across all the others. So
See, that I have to do. I don't do that, and I really need to do that.
if you have consistent lighting, like in these images, I have consistent lighting, and I can go into the develop module, and maybe I'll try and do it here real quick. I go into develop module, and I will click on her. Let's see, go to white balance, click on that card, and we're not going to worry about whether it's correct or not. And then I go and I select all the images, and I can say sync. And in this case, it pulls up a big dialog box with all kind of different things you can sync. You can sync just the white balance. You can sync, everything. And for whatever reason, it's not actually showing up in chat, is it?
No.
Wow. There's a lot of things that it's not capturing here. I'll do a screen capture of that and put it in the show notes too. But after I synchronize that, it now has taken those settings and has applied them to all the other images. So what you didn't see there is when I clicked on sync, it pulled up a dialog box with every little setting that you can think of: white balance, um, you know, the exposure, the clarity, the sharpness, all those other things that you can think of. It did those and applied them to every one of the images.
Now, I'm assuming you also calibrate your monitor.
Well, the one we're working on here is not calibrated because
Well, I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't imagine that one, but
yes, my monitors I calibrate. I have a Spider 3, and I calibrate them on a semi-regular basis, maybe once a month or so. The monitors do drift off their calibration, some more than others, so I do calibrate them. But so I will typically, when you're taking shots, sometimes, like in your case with soccer, if you're playing in outdoors, some parts of the field may be shadier than other parts of the field, or maybe a cloud comes over and it's darker at that
right.
moment. So you rarely can apply, if you got a 300 shot thing, rarely can I apply the settings from one image to all 300 of them. But typically I can do it to several of them. I can make some generic adjustment and apply it to all of them. So at least my starting point with each one of them is better, than it was initially. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it gives you the starting point to shoot off after that.
Yeah, and then
I
you
mean, a
go.
lot of times I'm shooting in the dark, and sometimes when I print it, and actually I didn't calibrate my monitor for the first couple of weeks. I had it, and I was printing off on my printer. I was like, man, why are these pictures so dark? Or actually, every picture I had, I was underexposing. It was like, man, they're all bright. Then I realized my monitor was way too bright.
Yeah, and I made a mistake. I have a Dell 24-inch as my main monitor, and a Samsung 20-inch as my secondary monitor, and it's turned vertical. And I tell you, getting them to calibrate to the same color and brightness
Oh,
is
that's
just it's almost impossible. I will sit here and calibrate. I get them to where I think they are. The next time I reboot, next or a few days later, they're off. They're not together anymore. And so I really no longer worry about that second monitor that's vertical because I'm using my main monitor as the one for editing, where I'm looking at the photo.
right. The other
So
one's got the palettes on there or whatever, and
yeah, the other one has the palettes, and I'm not worried about whether it's in off a little bit or not. So I'm just going to focus on the main one, um, and make sure it's right because if it's off, like you said, you don't know it. You're adjusting based upon wrong information, and you can really mess up the photo.
oh yeah.
Yeah. So typically what I do after I've gone through, I've made my keywording, I've made my selections, I've done my light edits and whatever else. I then will use the built-in publishing services to publish it to SmugMug, is where I'm going to put it. So I take these photos and put them up to SmugMug, and you can build your album in SmugMug or Facebook or Flickr, wherever you're going to put it. You can build it right there from Lightroom and publish straight from Lightroom. And for me, I used to shoot JPEG and RAW, and I would edit the JPEGs, put them up on a website. If parents wanted the photo, I then would go back and edit the RAW and give that to them. With Lightroom, there's no need for me to do JPEGs anymore. I can do all this, hit the Flickr upload button, bam, it's gone, and within no time, I have culled my image, downloaded my images, culled my images, edited my images, and uploaded the images
Absolutely.
in a very quick amount of time.
I'll tell you, the only thing I'm disappointed they haven't updated Flickr in a long time, and I'm hoping it's not going to disappear.
Flickr, the actual website, Flickr?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's owned by Yahoo, and they're in dire straits. So
Yeah, I know. Lightroom, I mean, Yahoo probably should have agreed to the Microsoft deal.
yeah, oh, absolutely. As Leo Laporte said, they were offered $33 a share, and now they're down around 14.
Yeah, that's, I guess, a topic for a different show, but
Yeah,
it's true. The one other thing I do sometimes is, and I try to go into the develop module, is there's a way you can make crap. I don't know if I want to do that. There's a way you can make virtual copies,
yeah, I use that.
and I'm not going to be able to display it here too well, but especially with the number of images we have, maybe I'll shrink them. So I'm going to highlight all the images. Then I'm going to right-click on it and say Create Virtual Copy. If I can see this, it's so dang small. Where is that?
It's around the middle, below stacking,
There we go. Create Virtual Copy. So then it's going to create a virtual copy of all those images, and the ones that are highlighted are the virtual copies.
and it should have a little flip up on the bottom
Yeah.
left of the picture, so you know which one.
So it hasn't actually made another physical copy. It's just gone out there and made a virtual copy. It's only in Lightroom that the copy actually exists.
Right, so it's not taking up any extra storage. It's not a second photo, which I really like of that. It's a virtual copy.
Yeah, but now you can edit them completely different. So if I wanted to go to say to make them all black and whites, I could go to presets and let's see, does it come with built-in? Yeah, it comes with built-in presets.
Yep.
And I'm going to go back to, this is a horrible black and white version. I wouldn't use this one. But Uh,
But it gives you the idea. It shows
yeah, and I did that wrong. But what you could, in theory, here do, I did it wrong. I think I had to have them all uh,
all selected.
selected or do something. Synchronize, and you can then have all these. All you can make a version. And there it worked. So I go out. It's hard to see in this small thing, but I make virtual copies of all of these, and I could just do a select number. I don't have to do all of them. I can just do 3 or 4 of them. I can very quickly convert all those virtual copies over to black and white, and say, "Huh, are there any ones in here that I think might look good as a black and white?" And if they are, then I can edit them. If they're not, then I just hit the delete key,
Right. And all you're deleting is the
and
virtual
all
copy.
the virtual copies are gone, and I don't have to deal with those virtual copies anymore. If one of them, let's say I had 20 of these, and one of them was actually okay, I do want to process that one in black and white, then I would just click that one to unselect it, leave all the others selected, hit delete, get rid of them, and then work on that one photo as a black and white. It's a way to quickly look at your entire selection and see if any of them would look good as a black and white, a sepia, or some other thing like that. I love creating virtual copies. I do it all the time.
I don't use it that much, but I definitely use it. And a lot of times I'll wind up using it to crop out a picture so that I'll have the original picture on the left and a crop of what I want. And like that might be the one I print, but at least I can always see the original picture. And like we talked about, you're not using up extra disk space with this.
Yeah.
And with the way pictures are nowadays, I mean, you have gigabytes worth of data of pictures.
Okay, so I think we're running out of time here, but I think we have covered the main thing. We want to talk about the workflow and how we bring images in, how we publish them out. I'll have some of this stuff in the show notes, and hopefully by this weekend I'll be all caught up with the shows. Work has been killing me, and I'm definitely behind. So Stephen and Gary, if you're new, yeah, you hopefully in Silver Rose out there, you'll probably be seeing a number of shows pop up over the next few days because I'm a little behind in the shows, but we're still keeping the live show coming. And I'm also, the show notes is part of the problem that slows me down because I am not, if you look at Andrew over at the Home Tech Show, which is another show I'm on, he is just a master at show notes. And that's one of my weaknesses. So I think I'm just going to simplify them and get them out quicker and not worry about it so much.
What's at the home? Because I started listening to the Average Guy show now.
Yeah.
And was it the Home Tech Show you said?
It is the Home Tech Show. Yep.
So it's good to have something to listen to on the commute.
Yeah, the Home Tech Show is Jim Collison, Andrew Morris from Australia, and Christian from up there in your area. Christian's a kid in high school from up in your area that is just crazy smart.
They are when it comes to computers.
Yeah. So to wrap this up, I wanted to go over a tip and see if what kind of tips we have. And I think I mentioned before I've got a list of tips, the old-fashioned way here
you're beating me out
on paper, and it looks like my video is frozen again.
Oh, yeah,
Mine.
Huh. No, I'm still moving.
You're moving. I'm not moving. I'll start and stop video. But my tip for tonight, we kind of talked on it before, is to watch your shutter speed. That one lady I talked about who took the photos, a professional photographer took the photos, who got back home, found out they were all well underexposed to the point where she's going to have to go back to the client and say, dang, I'm going to have to reshoot this, which never makes you look good. It never looks good. Is to, when you start taking those photos, watch your shutter speed and look at what exposure you're getting, because if you're just looking at the histogram and saying, yep, my exposure is good, and keep going, you may have other issues. You may have the shutter speed is too slow. That's why you're getting a decent histogram and you're blurring everything, and that is just unrecoverable. So depending on what you're shooting, whether you're shooting the kind of shot she was shooting where it's going to be inside and it's lower light, or you're shooting your soccer photos, when you got that camera up to your eye, take a quick second to look at the shutter speed and make sure that it's in the range where it needs to be, depending on what you're shooting. If you're not sure what that range is, try and maybe zoom in on the LCD, and did you stop the motion? So that's my tip for tonight.
Well, my tip for the night was preparation, and I've had this happen to me just the other day, as I was about to walk out the door. I grabbed my camera and I looked at the battery, and it was down to 17%. And thankfully, I had another battery, and I grabbed it before I left. So, preparation before you leave to go out, where you're not going to be near the equipment you have at home. Do you have the card that's either formatted or has enough room on it to take pictures? And do you have a battery that is fully charged so that you're prepared to go out there and do what you want to do? Not that you get out there and it's not like you can just go buy a set of AA batteries to put in the camera anymore. You have to have the battery that you need. And you're not going to go out and buy a compact flash like you could have bought a roll of film because, oh, I don't have enough film. You just want to be prepared when you go out there.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I am generally crazy, almost anal about it, where I lay everything out. I kind of pre-clean my lenses. I make sure my battery's charged is in my camera. I have a backup battery that is charged. I have it there too. I've got typically my 16 gig card, a 4 gig card, and two 1 gig cards as backup. I'll never need to use them. My 16 gigs will be enough, but I have them as backup. All that said, I still went to a softball game that was like 40 minutes away, got ready to shoot, got all my stuff, out there, and I forgot all the cards. I had no cards.
Oh, that is devastating.
And there's nothing I can do.
No, you're not going to go out there and buy one.
No.
You're not going to spend 50 if you can even find one.
No,
most don't sell them anyway.
I don't even know where I was. I had no idea where I was going to go and get a compact flash card. And most places around there, the Walmart and whatever else is not the best place to buy compact flash cards. The online's a better place to do that. One guy said, "Couldn't you take the card out of your camera, your phone, and put it in there?" They're not interchangeable.
No, they're not.
I can't do that.
My phone's got a micro SD card, so that wouldn't work. And then I'd have to wipe it out, and then my phone settings are messed up, so I wouldn't do it anyway.
And then it's, well, can you go home and get it? I said, yeah, I can. I'll be back in about 2 hours because it's a 40-minute drive.
And missed the game.
Your game is only an hour long. This is this was not a paid shoot. I don't get paid to shoot. This was just friends' game. I said, here's how we're going to solve it. I'll just come back for another game.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why preparation. Make sure you have what you need.
Yeah, preparation. That's a good tip. All right. This is show number 8. We're getting dangerously close to show number 10, and I think you're getting things a little bit smoother. We had a little bit of trouble tonight with Lightroom, but we'll get better with each show. And I want to get caught up on all the shows because I got a long list of articles I want to put up on the site. There's a lot of things I want to put up. Being in these different groups online, I'm seeing a lot of questions come up. Questions on RAW. There's a lot of confusion on RAW, and there's a lot of articles I would like to write. And again, the show is geared toward more of the beginning photographers, so a lot of professionals may already know about RAW and the advantages of that, and just a lot of other basic things. But I think there's a long list of things I'd like to write. So if you are listening to the show and you want to would like to write for the show, that would be awesome. Let Tim or I know, and you can contact Tim and I by just sending us an email at podcast@jpeg2raw.com and address it to either Tim or I, and I can get it to one of us. You can go to the site. If you're listening to this live, you're already at the site, but if you're listening to it recorded, it's jpeg2raw.com will get you there. We do have some forums that Tim is in there, but I don't think they're very active at this point. That's something that will come up later. I'd love for them to get more active. One of the things in the Facebook group I'm in that they're doing is they every once in a while post a photo and say, hey, let's have a competition. Not a real competition, but everybody go out there and edit this photo and let's see what you come up with. And I think, oh, that'd be awesome. I'd love for some of the novice photographers to be able to post photos for us to look at and help them out with what went wrong. Because I think a lot of people are still confused about they get blur in their image and they don't know why. They don't realize it's the shutter speed or whatever else.
Right.
So the forums is a place that we can do that. If you look at the forums and think, I'd love to have a forum group for this purpose, let me know or Tim know, and I can have that added. It's real easy to update. And we're also on Flickr, as Tim mentioned Flickr before. We're on Flickr. Just search for jpeg2raw, and you can also follow us on Twitter at jpeg2raw. And that's it for tonight. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.